Alexander.
Are you shopping for a great pre-owned deal? If so, then get to the sale at your locally owned Stadium GM Pre-Owned Superstore. Right now, we've got over $3 million of inventory on our huge lot, all on sale. We've got cars starting from just $4,000, SUVs from $5,000, and a great selection of trucks from only $6,000. To see it all, go to stadiumgm.com and then stop out at the locally owned store where Zero Down delivers every day. The Stadium GM Pre-Owned Superstore in Salem.
All right. Welcome, everybody, and good afternoon. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. I am Joe Danyi, your host, local entrepreneur, big advocate for the city. And what I want to see most is when our area is on the comeback and it becomes a flourishing city of growth once again, that we adopt sort of the entrepreneurial spirit where we have many, many more practitioners of coming up with great ideas of consequence and showing them off in the marketplace. We have such a loyal consumer base here in Youngstown that when small businesses get their start and they get momentum behind them, they also get the support of the people who will show up and spend local and keep raising these entrepreneurs, because these are our neighbors. Like these are people who have gone outside of the box, outside of the status quo, and taking big risks, and they are 100% like they're depending on us to support them and do our best to keep our money here on the local side. So that's what we do on the show. I want to encourage people to make that an option, and really, whether it's yourself or your neighbors or your kids, when you encourage, sometimes it's as little as shopping with them, telling them, giving some optimistic encouragement verbally. But the one thing that I think, are part of our grittiness here in the area is we sort of have this negative side to us at times. And what an entrepreneur does not need to hear is failures that have come before, or the potentials of failure, or that realist point of view about how something can't be done. Because a lot of what I do lives at the fringes of what nobody even knows they need yet. And so normally what I'm selling is I'm selling the idea of something that's hard to picture. And it's my job to paint that picture. But when, every one of those negative mindset people are going to come up to me and they're going to tell me something that they don't think I could see, which is, hey, that's a risky prospect. You'll probably fail. It's been done before. This, and this. And they're trying to be helpful. They're trying to tell me, hey, be careful. We don't want you to suffer any, injuries over this. And awesome. If that's your way of showing me how you care, that's good. I'm glad, but that's not what I need, right? What I need is the encouragement, people that have my back, people that will support my products and services, people that will tell me that, I'll tell my friends and family that I'm doing this. And if I can coax the public and keep everybody bought in without letting the negative mindset take, the priority, then I will have done what I set out to do. So if you want to call the program today, 330-729-9977. I do love taking your text messages and reading them on the air. So you can give me a text at 330-333-1570, and I will definitely read those. Now, I have these conversations with my 14-year-old, and it's one of my favorite things to do because, he's a fresh mind, doesn't have, he's looking up to me for the information, but I get so many new insights from what his brain concocts. And one of the topics recently was what characteristics, what temperament makes for a good business person? Like what is it the pessimist? Is it the optimist? Is it the person that is a workaholic? Is it the person who takes it easy? Is it the persuasive? Is it the coercive? And we're talking about these things where, and just I line up the instances of the businesses that I've seen pass, fail, succeed, and I add up those that were running the ship, and I'm thinking, okay, which ones have the best chances of making it. And I also look through success stories that I wasn't involved in and try to figure out if there are any common threads, common themes in what makes a successful venture have more of a potential or more of a, possibility. And so we went through it, and I would say, like, honesty, integrity, right? And we did the point, the cost benefit. So what are the negative points of being honest? What are the positive? And and you might say, well, there's no negatives to being honest. Yes, there are. There's negatives to just about everything that you do. So one of the examples, I was like, okay, so you are selling a car and you're on a lot and your job is to sell cars. If you sell cars, you make money. If you don't sell the cars, you don't make money. So a customer comes up and they start explaining what they need. And in your mind, you know that there's nothing on that lot that's what they need. Or you know that there's a car that's not on your lot, that's part of somebody else's, that's perfect for them, and yours is not perfect for them. So honest integrity would say you sell the car, or you tell them, you know what, nothing here is going to suit you. You go across the street over to Bob's car lot and buy that one over there. Now, which would you do? And every day, people have those little, they have those little quandaries, and some people will compromise their integrity to make the sale, and some people won't. So we have these long dialogues about, do you take one on the chin? The short term game is always won by doing, compromising your principles, but the long goal, the long end it plays out better for those who do keep their integrity. And it's kind of disheartening sometimes watching somebody win who doesn't follow the rules, and you are following the rules and you're struggling. And so it's super easy to look up and say, well, there's an unfairness here, that I'm competing with people aren't following the rules. So how likely would it be for you to also not follow the rules? But like I said, these are those philosophical questions that go into forming. It's much more than just having an idea, right? When you're running a company and you're looking where it's going to be in 10 years, and you're going to have somebody's future in your hands with employees and people that are buying from you and you are buying from, you're in a position where there's a lot of responsibilities. And so crafting who's going to be successful at it means that you have to find the highest priority and principles to know that what makes a lasting entrepreneur. And, I guess, if there are some, and I will tell you, I've always played the long game. So I've been through the ups and downs of, those contrasts of following the rules and watching someone get ahead of me. And I will always tell you that what you learned, like when you were a kid, when, do unto others as you would have done unto you, and all of those rules, that is how a successful business is made. And you know it in your heart. And if you've got those ethics and morals about you, then you can figure most of these out. But like I said, it's cool to be able to have these conversations with a 14-year-old because he will take the most direct approach, where we make things sophisticated and convoluted, and we boil out of it the logic that everybody really knows, but it's not that simple, right? So anyway, 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. Hey, Joe, I have a maintenance company and my employees will not take their breaks. They would rather work for the entire job and then leave an hour early, and it doesn't line up with the job quoting that I'm doing. Now, to me, I'm pretty sure that if you have, a work schedule, that I don't think that the Department of Labor or the rules that govern how much breaks, I don't think those are elective. I think you have to break. I think it is something that is forced, that, something should happen and they tie it back to not having taken the break. I think as the business owner, you're going to have to insist that the breaks do be taken because they're a requirement of labor law. And so I would say, you as the boss, or, push this down to one of your managers. I think you need to insist that they do take their breaks. So it's nice that they're willing to do it. And maybe it's an incentive to them that maybe leaving a little bit early. Maybe if you shift the workday, start a little bit earlier, leave a little bit earlier, then you remove some of the the temptation. But I don't know. I would say I would check with attorney and find out what you should be doing. But I have a feeling the attorney is going to say that those breaks need to be taken after however many hours. So 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. We almost have a full show today. We haven't had one because of sports, but we're going to go all the way to, I believe, 2:40 today with some of the computer show following the business show. Those of you on Facebook, I want to welcome you into the conversation as well. So if you got any comments, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, on Twitter, all of that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put in the comments and I'll read those as well. All right, let's see. How much should I expect? How much should I expect to charge? All right, I'll read that one during the breakout. It's not making much sense. Let's see. Google is rejecting my address and maps. How do I? Okay, this is more of a tech question, but I'm going to answer it now because I do recommend that all of you kind of check out what information points back to your business. Make it super easy for consumers to be able to find and get in touch with you. So you want to Google yourself and go to Maps, go to Waze, any way that you could think of that a customer might be able to find you. Make sure that your information is correct. And so if Google's giving you a struggle, really how this works is if there's ever been a location that somebody has contributed to Google, then you will need to take ownership, like having a Google business account. You will see a prompt that says, if, Joe's store, there'll be a button under it that says claim this location. And then you can use your Google business account to claim it as your own. If it's not been created, then you can make a suggestion using that same Google business account. And then I believe they will verify it. I think they still send a physical postcard in the mail. And then when you receive the postcard, you put the code in, and then for a period of time, it will be, it will be unfindable. But then after they receive the code, it verifies it, and then it'll be searchable and whatnot. So it's not an easy process. I've taken a couple people through it, and I've even published some out that weren't there from some of my companies, and it does take a little while. But don't give up on it. It is possible to publish out, and even if you were to make a contribution and say that let's just say it's a building and it says Joe's Pet Store and it's now a whatever, you could put it as just a Google user, make a recommendation, and it will send the updates back to your business account. So thank you for that question. Appreciate it. 330-729-9977, or you can text me at 333-1570. Let's see. I run a heating and cooling company. Do you think I am immune to AI competing in heating and cooling? We did a listing on the computer show a while back about the first level of jobs that will be threatened by artificial intelligence. And nowhere did we mention any of the trades. We didn't. Carpentry and contracting and heating and cooling. Now, there will be elements within each business that can be replicated. You got to think about it this way, where computers are following sort of like a decision tree, right? And if a process can be followed, then a computer can do it. And certain types of AI are able to cross the programming and make decisions on their own based on some kind of logic. So if you can program logic into it, and the AI can follow that logic to a conclusion, it would almost be like, we'll say in law, and that's why I say like attorneys. Some attorneys are absolutely replaceable. Judges replaceable. Government replaceable. Anybody who makes a decision that has a set of rules that are black and white. So if you were to say, did you do something, and you filter in the data, you put the data into the system, and the system decides if you're guilty or innocent, or yes or no. And so like elements of like accounting and marketing and sales, that all could be done with AI. But going into the field and slapping a furnace in somebody's house, I imagine that's going to be quite a while. So I'm not going to say you're going to be immune, because one day there'll be robotics that walk around and do things, or they make systems that are self-robotic, like they're self-healing and self-fixing and whatever. Not there yet, but my timeline, I'm looking at between now and 10 years from now. That's the stuff that you start positioning yourself for, that if you're in an industry that is threat of AI, that's the stuff we need to start making maneuvers on. And if your business is one of those sectors, you definitely have to start positioning yourself in a certain way. But I do not think heating and cooling is one of the first. If I was in law, so a low level attorney, some just kind of finance law or whatever, yeah, I'd probably be threatened that AI could, through a computer, make a lot of the decisions that I do, because I'm just following the script anyway. And doctors, like some of the medical community, is probably going to be without jobs, because there's some manual processing that happens where people are being filtered in a bunch of data, and they're making calls about where that data aligns to be able to make some kind of decision. So thank you for that question. Appreciate it. Let's see. And that AI immunity thing is going to be a big topic over the next. I'm already kind of annoyed with how often we have to talk about it here. So just think, when it starts taking roots in different industries, how often it's going to come up during the show. So, all right, you're listening to the Bottom Line Business Show. We'll be back after these commercials on 570 WKBN.
Ohio, ready for some quick mental health facts? Let's go. Nearly 2 million Ohioans live with a mental health condition. In the U.S., more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. So why are some of us still stigmatizing people living with a mental health condition when we know all of this? Let's listen to the facts and beat the stigma. Ohio, challenge what you know about mental health at beatthestigma.org.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Cleveland area attorneys. 5005 Rockside Road, Suite 350, Independence, Ohio, 44131.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. If you have any questions, want to talk about business at all, please give me a call, 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570 as well, and I'll be paying attention to the text line. As I said earlier, there are a lot of success stories that we can learn about what works, what doesn't, what strategies people are taking on. And I love looking at those insights, because those overcomer stories are always things, especially in the Youngstown area, we love a good overcomer story. And so we were, as part of what I do on the private investing side, and I just do these small equity investments. Usually it's startups or people early on in the process, and I help them get started. And one of those came to me probably about 6 months ago. And it was a defense company teaching jiu-jitsu and whatnot. And this guy was being loaned some space from another business owner. So he had some spot in the garage area. He set up some mats, got his business underway. So his overhead super low, because he was being lent the startup. So all he really had to buy was some gymnastics mats, and he was on his way. And so if you connect that with what we preach here on the show, is proof of concept, right? Before you buy a building, excuse me, and get a bunch of money invested in something, let's prove that you can do it, want to do it, and prove that there's a demand for it. And so you prototype what you're going to do, and you set out to prove, to make sure that there are customers willing to exchange money for it. And so in this case, he was selling his classes in the evenings. And he said, there's enough demand here that I'm going to go get myself a rental. I'm going to lease some space and upgrade, get out of the loaned space and into one of my own. And he did that. Excuse me. Anyway, so he did that, and he went off and started practicing. Went off the radar for a good 2 or 3 months, and could have gone either way, because he had his first couple months of operating without a safety net, has real expenses. The bills need to be paid. The revenue has to be there. And then boom, he pops up, says, hey, ready to rock and roll here. It went well the last couple months. And I have yet to sit down and go over the details with him, but it really sounds like he had a good first couple months where the consumers, the public supported his business, and he was able to grow his classes, pay his bills, and go from there. So I will give you guys an update next week when after I sit down and talk with him to see how all that went. Those are the best stories, because we can identify a person getting started, and with all of their the tribulations that we hear about in business, it's good to hear someone who conquered those and overcame. So that was a cool little story. 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. Says, I am in the hole and I'm not actively making any money with my business. I'm an artist. I'm trying to live off my creativity, but it is a struggle. I'm overwhelmed and don't know where to start. I started doing traditional, and now I'm doing some digital stuff, but I really don't know much about the business part other than selling on Etsy. I'd like to sell more merchandise and maybe get into some galleries and maybe do some consignment, but I don't know if I have the funding for that kind of thing. Some advice. Okay. The creative space is something that is very difficult. We've had a couple of people come through our office that were in that space, and just like I was saying before, proof of concept. You've got your art, people are buying it. They might not be buying it to a level where the revenue can support, sort of internal resources. You're probably not going to host your own gallery, but I always recommend using as much existing things as possible at the lowest cost you can. So if you can talk to a couple of business owners that would hang some of your stuff on their wall, maybe tag it with who the artist is. Somebody walks through, they see some art they like, they see that it's tagged with the artist's name, and they're like, hey, can I buy that? Because is that for sale? Or they can come in contact with you. So that might be both a point of sale, and it also might just do marketing to let people know what it is that you do. But you almost have to create a machine where that's trackable and it's done on purpose. A guy doing you a favor, hanging on the wall, is good for the proof of concept, but then make it a transactional thing where you go into a business that's not your friend and it's not done on a favor, that maybe the consignment is they let you use, excuse me, but they let you use their walk-in traffic to, prospect new sales, and you give them a cut or commission on anything that sells through there. And I would almost tailor it to what kind of customers come through in that space, match their vibe, and they're more likely to, to let you do that, because their cost is, think about it, they would be outfitting the place with probably artwork and things to decorate anyway. This would solve that problem, and they can make a revenue stream if they're able to sell your stuff. But I would do it very tastefully, and I know there's going to be some creative concessions that you have to make in order to be viable, to make it so that somebody wants to put your art there, not just doing you a favor. So that's one way of doing it. It's really low cost, and it's just going to take you knocking on some doors and talking to some people in order to get that blessing. And then joining a gallery, see what it takes to get your artwork included in a place where people go there for the specific purpose of buying. But I would say, if I were to say, where artwork is best needed, design work is probably a very, it's almost like when you get a photographer that wants to be doing one thing in the creative space, and they find out that like weddings and graduation pictures are their, most plentiful demand. You got to kind of do what you got to do to create revenue until you can get to the point where you can make more choices. And when I come back, I'm going to talk about the business targeting. I'm going to describe this principle, this thing that I teach in my business classes. So anyway, this is the Bottom Line Business Show you're listening to on 570 WKBN. We'll be right back.
Over $6 billion in tax refunds were flagged by the IRS for possible identity theft in 2023. If you're in a bind this tax season, LifeLock can help. Their U.S.-based restoration specialists are dedicated to helping solve identity theft issues, and all plans are backed by the $1 Million Protection Package, which means if you lose money because of identity theft, LifeLock will reimburse you to the limits of your plan. Go to LifeLock.com and save up to 25% your first year with promo code CLAY.
Go with your gut. Your dog's immune system is based in the gut. A diet lacking in nutrients can cause itching, scratching, and a weak immune system. However, there is a solution. DINOVITE. Dinovite.
It took a grand total of 2 weeks. The dog stopped itching, the hair stopped falling out.
Try Dinovite for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Learn more at dinovite.com/radio.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinovite.
A shooting Thursday night inside a home on Baden Street in Toledo has left one man dead. The incident happened around 8 p.m. The victim's name has not yet been released. Police say a woman is being questioned as a witness to the shooting. No arrests have been made. The case against a Campbell woman accused of killing her boyfriend in Girard has been bound over to the Trumbull County Grand Jury. Kristen Schmidt is accused of shooting her boyfriend, Michael Cusick, in January. Schmidt told police Cusick was trying to break into her home and that she and Cusick had been fighting all night. Wright State University is suspending admissions for nearly 36 degree programs. Provost Amy Thompson says eliminating programs that have low or no enrollment allows educators to improve and expand other courses that remain in demand. Students who are already enrolled in one of the impacted courses will be allowed to finish their studies. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 1. Free never sounded so good. The free iHeartRadio app in the App Store or online. 570 WKBN.
Weather brought to you by Mazza Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
A chance for snow showers lingers throughout your Saturday. An additional light coating to an inch of snow possible. High temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Snow showers begin tapering off this evening. Skies begin to clear heading into the overnight. Low temperatures fall into the upper teens. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Cleveland area attorneys. 5005 Rockside Road, Suite 350, Independence, Ohio, 44131.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Bottom Line Business Show. Last question was, we have an artist that is trying to make money and is basically in the hole, not doing very well financially in their pursuit. So we're throwing out some advice. It applies to a lot more than just the creative space, so you can listen up to this. And so let's see, a couple people from Facebook says, hi, Joe. Anthony from Lawrence County, listening. Great talking with you recently. Hello, Anthony. Thank you for stopping in. Liam, also from Facebook, says, Warren and Youngstown have art galleries as well as events. You can also sell art on the streets if you want, if the city allows it. If you also don't have a zoning ordinance, you can set up your garage to sell art. Good suggestions. Thank you, Liam. Appreciate you being out there. And so what I want to talk to you about is, you know, if you make some of those creative concessions and you basically create what there's the biggest demand for. So your goal is to fill up all of your available time first. And if you have to fill it up with things that are maybe less lucrative, so think of a dartboard, right? Or a target that you would, you know, a shooting target or archery target, and you have the rings, right? The center ring would be your bullseye, and then you have rings that are outside of that. And if you, the point system is that you get the most points for the hardest, which is the center, the bullseye, and then the least amount of points for the the outer rings. And you look at the types of business that can come through is the outermost rings are most plentiful. It has the most surface area that you can hit, the easiest to hit. And then as you go internally, it gets harder. Same thing goes with here. So you might have your graduation photos as being the least lucrative but most available. You can go fill up your entire day with graduation photos or wedding photos. But you want to do, stuff that's more creative. There's more meaning. There's something in more for you. Well, you can start taking those jobs, but rather than insisting that you fill your entire day with just the ones that are the most lucrative, make a set a priority for the ones that are most lucrative, but be willing to fill any available space with the less lucrative ones to make sure that you come up to some kind of capacity. And so in this case, first ring would be just take all the business that you can, work through it, and then when one of those come in, right, then you are filling a spot. You might have to say no to a less lucrative one so that you have time and availability, but wait for that one to come through the door before you do that. And you might, just because of your pigeonholing yourself into one thing, it's starving you out. And the goal with this is to make sure that you can do it long enough for it to fully take effect. Sometimes you got to outlast the scarcity in the short term to get to what you really want to work up to. And there's a little danger in that, because if you take all of those less lucrative, you might build all of your operations and your prospecting and everything to get more of those, and then you never weave back in what you truly started to do. So when you write your mission statement, you have to write and read that thing on a regular basis to remind yourself that you didn't get in this job to do graduation pictures. You're doing that as a transactional deal where you're trying to stay in the game. But really, I got to remind myself that when I'm prospecting, I really need to go after and hit that bullseye topic. So that's why I started doing this, why I took on the extra risk, why it's harder than it needs to be, because that's what I want to go after. So that's the targeted approach. And we do that in our menu, right, for our services that we offer. And sometimes we'll remove a service completely after we've filled a lot more of those inner rings or those bullseyes. We just don't have time to take on the less lucrative. And what that does is that frees up the next guy. Because remember, those out ones, those are your starters. And so the next guy getting in business, you've now freed up where you're working on something that's a little bit harder to achieve, and allowing the next guy to take over those outer ring kind of jobs. So thank you for that question. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of money in it. We helped a local artist, Mandy Biddleman. She was doing the same thing. She was working a 9-to-5 and she was creating art in her garage. Very talented artist. So we commissioned a couple projects with her. So we gave a couple gifts away. A portrait of somebody and their horse, gave it as a Christmas gift, way more personal of a gift. And we got to support a local artist in that pursuit as well. And that's the kind of stuff. Once you get tagged in and you kind of know who your local producers are, you can on purpose seek them out and support their businesses that way and give them a start. And I know that's those commissioned projects, they're harder, right? And they're less available. You could probably paint what you want to paint and slap it on a wall and hope someone buys it. But if someone comes to you with a very specific thing, I want a lighthouse with 2 dolphins and a blah, 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 right? You're setting up that piece of art might not be exactly what you wanted to paint, right? Or photograph, but you have a buyer lined up while you're working on it. And, because if you're just creating inventory that nobody's buying, that's a good way to get in the position of our texter here that you'll have a lot of inventory and no revenue. And I'd like to see you do this for a little while. So thank you. Let's see, 330-729-9977. And, the art community, that I have a soft spot for that whole industry, whether it's, artistic painting and photography, musicians, comedians, these atypical type of pursuits are sometimes the most competitive. And the differentials between you take one artist who's banking millions of dollars per year and someone of equal talent, but maybe even been in the industry a really long time, and they're clocking $500 a month in doing what they want to do. That disparity between the two, when you look at the quality or the talent behind it, sometimes it's not the most talented end up putting the most money in the bank. So if you structure it like a business and you pursue things like that on purpose, but creative minds sometimes need a logical mentor to kind of put some rigidness behind it. And I'll tell you, I'm 80% logical, 20% creative. So when I do things, I have to force myself into the creative space. And sometimes I get in too much logic and I ruin the creative space. So sometimes they're incompatible when you get in those modes, but I know that they are, they're absolutely necessary. So I might come into the office with a really good teaching topic or a 10-minute dissertation on something, and I can't wait to get in the studio and record it. And then I'll sit in front of the computer and do like QuickBooks or some spreadsheets, or I'll do some calculations or put some procedures. And by the time that I'm done with all that logical stuff, my creative part is like it's been deadened so much that I don't even want to really do it anymore. I don't have the verve. I don't have the energy to do it anymore. So I have to do all of my creative stuff first. And then after I get all that stuff out, then I can go back into logical mode. And a lot of times when I spec out doing a speech or talking in front of a group, a lot of my friends in that industry, they'll script it, they'll rehearse it, they'll really put some structure behind it. And just what I shared with you there, that would ruin my output. It would sound monotone. And it would sound like I was reading a script, because I have not really ever mastered the hybriding, the creative presentation with the logical presentation. So it's all or nothing with me. I can give myself a couple bullet points and then let my creative mind, go crazy and fill in the rest. And so it works for me, but that's just a little bit of a warning that sometimes creativity is suppressed a little bit when you get a guy that's trying to give that kind of structure. You'll convince me that, that'll ruin everything. And I kind of get that, but you still have to figure out a way to do both, because I believe that both of those skill sets are necessary. All right, 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. Let's go to Bob. Bob, you're on the Bottom Line Business Show. How can I help you?
Yeah, I'm just listening to your program now about the artist.
Yeah.
And I'm also an artist, but not so much practicing anymore. But now that I'm retired, I'm thinking about getting back into it again. But the bottom line is, I had a company, I contacted them. The name of the company is called Art Storefronts. And I haven't wrapped my head around it completely yet, but I did talk to them, and they are trying to sell a product. And their product is to take artists that know how to create but aren't real good at marketing. And what they do is they take a commission, like you said, with putting into a storefront or a friend's business. So they take a commission, they create a website for you, and they market you. And there's a lot of other bells and whistles that really go with it. And like I say, I'm just checking into it now, but have the caller search Art Storefront. And I don't know if it's .com or not for sure, but anyway, if he types in Art Storefront, he'll get some data. They have different packages. It is somewhat costly, but I think if you're an artist that can produce a good product and a decent amount of product, I think they'll help you price it, and they'll definitely help you market it worldwide. So it's something to look into.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Bob. You got a second?
I do.
Okay, so something that I've tried to wrap my head around is building what your labor costs are into pricing art. So if you put something together and you have 20 design hours, does that correspond with what the market will support? Or is it you have to figure out how to make these pieces within a certain period of time so that you're not making less than minimum wage kind of a thing? So how do you do your labor and your pricing?
Well, that's a good question. And as a friend of mine who is an artist told me once, artists never get paid what they're worth unless they're dead and they're very good and they're collectible. And I think that's kind of true, but it doesn't have to be. Like, I collect an artist by the last name of Christensen, and only because as an artist, I really appreciate his work. But at the same time, I can only afford his prints. So the one way you can cut your costs and increase your volume is to print a limited edition of your work. And that way you have to create a following. And if you can create a following via a website and you have an attractive product that appeals to a lot of people, you can definitely make prints, reproduce them, and save the original as something for an auction in the future that the people that collect you might want to bid on the originals and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, do you have any recommendations for sort of those grinds, those ones that are really, there's a high demand for, but maybe they're not real lucrative, that people just getting started can have an idea to go create?
I really don't. I can't think of anything off mine.
Okay.
But I'll give you an example of my profession. I graduated from art school. I met my wife there of 48 years. But the bottom line is we're both somewhat talented. I think my wife's more talented than I am because she can imagine something and her hands start to move and it comes out on paper and it's beautiful. Me, I'm more of a technical person where I have to look at something, combine things, and struggle. But anyway, that being said, I got out of the art business. We started very young, and we tried to start, and you just can't produce the income you need to. I think with the right tools you can, but in today's market with the internet, with websites, with advertising, I think you could create a following, and that's what you need. Like a musical band that has people that follow them all over the country or wherever. You just got to create that type of environment. And that's hard to do. I wouldn't say that was easy. But I got into a medical art. I created a crown and bridge work for doctors, for dentists. And basically, I would individually make one tooth at a time. I'd build them out of gold, zirconium oxide, whatever it took to make it happen. And I was trained with a very, very specific dentist that focused on creating the teeth that were coordinated with the TMJ joint. And anyway, it got real intense, real involved, put a lot of time into it, made my business with it and retired from it. Didn't do exceptionally well, but at the same time, I may be able to retire. But the bottom line is what I brought that up for is I would sell my crowns to the dentist after I put 6, 8, 10 hours into one tooth for $150.
Oh, man.
And that was a lot. And then the doctor turns around and marks it up immensely. Like, I don't exactly know what the market is right now, but I would guess around $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for something he spent a half hour on, another hour delivering it. And hey, that's what I went to dental school for, and he knows a lot more than I do. But at the same time, as an artist, I'm saying it's just hard to get the recognition. So,
all right, Bob.
That's all I have to say.
All right, Bob. Thank you so much for talking with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good day.
You
Thanks.
too.
I'll listen on.
All right, thank you. And Bob brought up a good point that marketing and I think even when artists and musicians, writers, the internet is your friend, where it allows you to kind of take your skills and put them on display for the entire world. But it also is available to everyone else. So what ends up happening is you have a lot of people, and when you have a glut of that, it doesn't feel like it's very rare. So I like the internet. You write a song, you put it on Spotify, and you collect your royalties checks. And when you get the $10 that you did over a couple months worth of spins, it's a little bit demoralizing that, as Bob was saying, he put all of this effort into it and it barely paid the bills. So I like the local approach, where you have the local economy and the local market buy into who you are, and in your city, you can probably build up a reputation and a following quicker than outwardly. But I would do both at the same time. I would hit both markets. I would do the local coffee shop where you put your wares in there, or find a way in your local community to demonstrate that is your best marketing, is because you have a special skill that not everybody has. I've tried to paint before, and when I see someone who can do something with ease, that's something that I struggle with, I have a huge appreciation for it, and I'm super willing to to dole out my when I purchase something, I'll definitely take it to a local artist before I would buy something on the national side anyway. So that's good advice, and I appreciate it. If you're on social media and you want to ask a question, go for it. If you're in that artistic field, we deal with a ton of talented people that are in the same boat where they're doing it, they're doing all the right things, and they're just missing one piece. Even people who are, performing every week in a bar and, putting together $100 per set that they're able to play. That's the onset. And when we talk on our music shows about the discovery process in the 80s and 90s versus now, where we used to have clubs that people would play and then they would be snatched up by talent agencies and they would be put on bigger and bigger stages. Well, I think the talent scouting got a little bit lazy where they don't send people out to do that, where you could just discover that on the internet. So let's just say you were auditioning for a movie and 100 people showed up to audition for that same movie. You were 1 in 100, right? So you're only competing against the people that showed up that day. What if they were picking somebody from millions of people? Well, you would have to not only be good, right? But the people are scouting through 1 million. Do you think they really have time to investigate each individual one? Or are they just trying to pull something out from that list to kind of filter out a bunch of them? So you might be being disqualified for something that in person you would, be able to still show off what it is that you do. And I don't know exactly what would disqualify your look, your feel, whatever. But less competition means that you have a better potential overall to be discovered. So set yourself apart, I guess. 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Bottom Line Business Show here on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
We are standing on one of the world's largest natural untapped resources. We have enough natural gas under our feet to supply our energy needs for the next 400 years. Fuel prices affect everything, and Ohioans can barely afford to live. Until we come up with something better, we need to get it out of the ground now. But I'll also remove the trade secret clause and make these companies reveal the chemicals they use. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Bottom Line Business Show. This says, Joe, can you teach great customer service to your employees? It's possible you can take principles and make sure that you underscore them when you have meetings. But I think that the person that you hire has to already kind of know. They have to get what customer service is. And I've been around some really technically savvy people and that have a disconnection between technical service and solving problems versus connecting with people and really giving great customer service. And I think there are it's just like any other specialty. Sales is a specialty, customer service is a specialty. And so I would always put my most public facing people that have the kind of get it the most. And I think the biggest complaint generationally, the complaint is that, younger people are more self-centered and they don't hold doors open for people. They don't have the same considerations that the older people do. But I don't think that's the case. I think we make, there are some in there, and I think that they're inconsiderate people and people don't have empathy for others in every generation. It's just easy to, take that criticism and levy it en masse. And I've run into a lot of younger people that, take care of people and understand from their perspective, from the customer's perspective, what they have to endure or what they have to, hoops they have to jump through to be able to use their products and services. So I think it can be taught overall in meetings, but I think your best customer service people are already going to have an upbringing that was supportive of that kind of behavior. Instead of you teaching it against the grain of who they are, you're facilitating it through the grain of who they already are. So thank you for that question. 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570 as well. And any of these, and this is open to everybody who listens to this show. If anybody needs social media help, it's something that one of my companies does. So you can call us, and we will help small businesses kind of get on the map. And we're inventing some really low cost products that there was a restaurant that came to us a couple days ago, and they're really suffering, and they just need market exposure. They need people to know where they are so they can come and trial their food, and by the time they get to us, I can't take a regular marketing campaign and put it on the table, because we're not investing revenue at that point. This is speculative risk money, the money that should be going into operations. And now, since they're not doing very well, it's tough to justify spending extra money, but it's necessary. So we've got some lower cost things. If you're just starting out, you're a startup, you don't have a huge budget for marketing, we will help develop that marketing budget so you can get into more traditional radio advertising, television advertising, stuff like that. But in the interim, you need a return on whatever that investment is. So I think social media lends itself to have the best short-term return on investment. And so if you want to get in contact with my company, 330-259-7278, and I think it's option 3, leave a message over there, and our marketing people will help you get something established. We run total social media campaigns, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and allow you to connect with your local market in as small of a budget as you can get away with. And then as success comes through, we can ramp up that budget and spend a little bit more, attract a little bit more new customers. And that's the lifeblood of a company, is that phone ringing with new inquiries, right? And so when we came in and started doing marketing and advertising with iHeart here, I believe I was getting maybe 1 or 2 calls a week. And then after I started doing this marketing, it was about between 10 and 15 new inquiries every day, converted to probably 2 major customers, every week. And so done right, you can get a nice little tidal wave of business in, if you, like our last caller was, that show off who you are, share yourself with the world and what it is that you do. Because yes, people buy products and services, but what they really buy is the people behind those products. And if you're a talented person and you've got that integrity, you're totally marketable. And it's easy to do marketing for people who are really good. Really mediocre's a little rougher. If you're one of many, it's hard to stand out. But if you've really got talent, or you've got a great story to tell, we could put you in a light that will attract people to do business with you. So give us a call, 330-259-7278. Leave a message and let me know that you'd like some marketing help. Really, small businesses are that sweet spot for that service, where you can spend $50 to $100 a week, and in real time compare what that buys you, how many new customers it buys you, how much more sales that gets you. And it's pausable, so that if you do it for a couple weeks and then take a break for a little bit and do it for another couple weeks and and it's harder that way from the marketing side, but you achieve your goals a little bit easier, and it opens the product up to a little bit more smaller companies that, I want to see hundreds of new companies starting in Youngstown, every month. I want new people coming out of high schools and colleges to say, I want to do this. And so we got to have a whole plethora of products that apply to not just big businesses that have big budgets, but also small businesses that need a little bit of help, but are willing to, slow play it and buy into that success, and, trust it with us and let us help grow it up. So, all right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back with the Youngstown Computer Show next. You've now listened to the Bottom Line Business Show here on 570 WKBN.
The rule of law is under attack.
On college campuses, violence is on the rise.
And authorities in that city said they will not arrest shoplifters who participated.
Citizens sued because the agency ignored the Constitution.
The way out of the chaos depends on electing conservative judges who will stand by the Constitution. That's Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey, running for Court of Appeals.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Gun owners, pro-life advocates, and Trump supporters across Eastern Ohio are supporting Caitlin Dickey because they know she can be trusted.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Caitlin Dickey is endorsed by Sheriff Brian McLaughlin and more than 20 conservative Republican leaders. Defender of the Constitution. Vote Caitlin Dickey for judge.
Paid for by Dickey for judge.
From the Fairway Ford Studios, fairwayfordohio.com. Fairway, that's the way we do business. This is News Radio 570 WKBN, Youngstown. The time is 1 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. An explosion as firefighters were investigating a report of a gas leak at a Virginia home. A volunteer firefighter is dead.
The deceased name is Trevor Brown of the Sterling Volunteer Fire Company. He's 45 years old, survived by a wife and 3 children.
Loudoun County Fire Chief Keith Johnson, 4 of the 10 firefighters injured remain hospitalized. All are expected to survive. Lots on the table at the Munich Security Conference today. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog discussing the ongoing war in Gaza. Blinken reiterating the administration's commitment to Israel's security.
We're thinking, of course, of the hostages and doing everything possible to bring them home. We're thinking, as we always do, about Israel's security.
And in Munich, a bilateral meeting between U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Harris promising the Biden administration will keep urging Congress to move forward on more military aid to Ukraine.
You have the support of bipartisan majorities in both houses of the United States Congress. So as we move forward, the President and I, President Biden and I, will continue to work to secure the resources and weapons that you need to succeed.
But while Ukraine waits for that aid, a key eastern Ukrainian city, Avdiivka, falling to Russia this weekend after months of ferocious fighting. And Russian prison officials saying jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has died. Julia Yaffe, founder and correspondent at Puck, at the Munich Security Conference, where Navalny's wife Yulia spoke Friday following the news of her husband's death.
Just shock spreading through the rooms here. It was like a bomb went off and people whispering, "Did you hear? Did you hear? Did you hear?" It's just absolutely awful.
Meanwhile, in Washington, President Biden placing the blame directly on Russian President Vladimir Putin. You're listening to ABC News.
While visiting the site of last February's train derailment in East Palestine, President Biden called the situation there not an act of God, but an act of greed. He said whatever Norfolk Southern doesn't clean up in East Palestine, the government will. The president also announced how this train derailment can be something from which to learn.
Today, I'm announcing the award of 6 National Institutes of Health grants to some of America's best research universities to study the short and long-term impacts of what happened here. That includes just north of here, Case Western University. So you'll have a top researcher with you as long as you need.
Democratic state lawmakers hosted the first ever gun violence prevention summit at the Ohio State House Thursday. Various representatives from advocacy groups and law enforcement were invited to share their recommendations on firearms safety. As part of the summit, Democrats introduced a set of bills centered on gun reform, including proposals for universal background checks and regulations on concealed carry. First it was a mistrial, then it wasn't.
There have been a number of starts and stops in Jason Meade's murder trial in Franklin County. After days of deliberating the former deputy charged with murder and more in the shooting death of Casey Goodson Jr., several members of the jury have been dismissed and replaced with alternates. That's caused deliberations to restart. Then, late this morning, reporting from the courtroom said the judge declared a mistrial, only to have that taken back a few minutes later, and the jury told to resume its deliberations. I'm Jack Crumley.
Downtown Medina will have a new hotel and event center. The Legacy at Medina Square will be constructed on South Main Street and will have 78 hotel rooms and an event center, making it the first hotel in the downtown area since the 1950s. Groundbreaking for the $22 million project is expected to take place in March or April. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 1:30. To follow us on Twitter, click the link on our site.
You followed me. I feel all warm and fuzzy.
Or search on Twitter, 570 WKBN.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
A chance for snow showers lingers throughout your Saturday. An additional light coating to an inch of snow possible. High temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Snow showers begin tapering off this evening. Skies begin to clear heading into the overnight. Low temperatures fall into the upper teens. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
All rise.
In today's dangerous world, we need a judge who will be fair and who will keep our community safe. That's conservative Republican Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's running for Court of Appeals.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with experience prosecuting criminals and getting them off our streets.
She's a protector.
And Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with judicial experience issuing protection orders for women and children.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey respects our U.S. Constitution and proudly took the oath to protect it.
She's a protector. Judge Caitlin Dickey has the experience we need. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the Constitution. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the people. Vote conservative Republican Judge Caitlin Dickey for Court of Appeals.
Paid for by Dickey for Judge.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Cleveland area attorneys. 5005 Rockside Road, Suite 350, Independence, Ohio 44131.
All right, welcome everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I am Joe Danyi, your host, owner of Youngstown Computer, and we've been doing this tech show way over a decade, tons of years. We've converted a ton of people who swore off technology to give it a shot early on, and now we've been creating a lot of confidence in this space so that you include more and more technology in the stuff that you do. We also talk about current events, so if you have anything that's going on in the news that you're curious about, want to see where we're headed, it's a really fascinating and interesting time to be alive because we are seeing a lot of these technologies in their infancy. 5-10 years from now, this will be stuff that all of us use simply like we use our cell phones, tablets, and whatnot. The devices will merge with humanity. So rather than carrying something around, I have a feeling that it will be something that just becomes part of us. We talk about AI a lot because every question revolves around it. When I'm in public, it's all we want to talk about is where AI is headed. So we had a good conversation the other day, and it had to do with the big game, right? And everybody loved the big game commercials. It's something that even people who are not real big fanatical football fans look forward to the clever ads that are run. Very expensive, clever ads. Some of the most common companies got their big breaks because of ads and that they ran during the Super Bowl. And so what the conversation was, how much longer before commercials are tailored to the viewer? So you're watching TV and you're watching a commercial that is in a specific spot that everybody is watching the same commercial. But how long before you and your buddy that are next door neighbors have different interests? So you are definitely seeing different advertisements coming through your door. And technology, that stuff's already available now. Especially, we cut the cable, people are streaming, the services are in control of, the advertisements. Sometimes you see it's, even if you have a local feed, some of the national ads are different when you're watching something through a streaming service. And a lot of those can be really customized down to you. So you might be watching football and you have no interest in buying a car, not in the market. So your ad might be for something like food or some kind of consumable. And I don't know, it kind of ruins certain things because the megaphone on the highest watch television show or event basically makes everybody look at something for a period of time. And we're totally conditioned that is probably the most effective advertisement that there ever is during, the Super Bowl. But if it's different, how much more will those spots cost if everybody has to see them? But for advertisers, think about how more cost effective it would be, how much more inventory you could sell if you did an ad during the Super Bowl that was, had a less viewed but more, granular control of who saw the ad. And so it brings up all these conversations about the customizable world, and it gets more, for you as the viewer, listener, or whatever, that it's not uniform. So it's an interesting starter of the conversation. I want to say hey to everybody over on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter this morning. If you guys have any questions about technology or want to join the conversation about AI, give me a call, 330-729-9977. And I also read your text messages here. So 330-333-1570. But the question is, how do you start getting used to it? How do you start previewing what AI is capable of? And if you are a Twitter user, you can already go to your Twitter feed on a PC, and theirs is called Grok, Grok, and you can start to have text conversations with Grok, tell it to do things, and it will respond. Like, write me a song that has to do with chocolate chip cookies and make it in the theme of classic rock from the 80s, and it'll write you a song exactly what you told it to do. And it's kind of interesting to see the logic and how good the stuff that it can author, and you'll get a sense for its capabilities. And again, it's in its infancy. So the laggards who want a perfect AI version, it's not there yet. But those of you who are in the innovations and forward-looking things, get a sample of it. It's kind of interesting. OpenAI is another competing AI company, and they release something called Sora. And Sora can actually put together a 1-minute video based on a text entry. So you could say, Sora, make a video about a girl on a beach sipping a drink and have a dolphin. And it's going to assemble a video that you will not be able to tell whether or not it was a real video that was filmed or it was generated by an AI. It's indistinguishable between the two. All right. And no fear brains here. Like, think of all the possibilities where, you don't have to go get B-roll. There's enough stuff out there that you can go just have AI generate something that's completely unique. And I'm kind of curious is when we start developing these things, are we going to emulate what exists, or do you think that we're going to create brand new spaces that are just total fiction? And like when you're watching a movie and you see a set in a recognizable city like New York City, it kind of makes a little bit of the movie, right? Because it's recognizable. You can see a place that really exists. Where if in the fantasy world that AI can develop, it doesn't have to. It could be completely generated based on in your inputs rather than something that already exists. All right, 330-729-9977. Let's talk to Scott. Scott, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Hey, good afternoon, Joe. Really find your program interesting quite often. Other times it rambles on and I got to shut it off. But I'm an old timer, been retired. I'm in my mid-70s. And after hearing Sheriff Rick Jones out of Butler County the other day and understanding some of the dilemma that the state of Ohio and pretty much every other state that doesn't get information from the government about drones, I'm wondering if you and your son, you guys are so smart on this electronic stuff, if you came up with a product to detect drones, which they don't have anything like that, it would be a real help to everybody. Anyway, just a thought, and I thought I'd call and say hello.
All right, Scott, thank you so much for being out there. Appreciate the phone call. And and think about, like, if you don't need a special permit, these things don't have like tracking beacons. They don't have to present themselves on a radar. really, I saw a documentary about some of the human traffickers that will use drones at the border to see where the security personnel are, so they can figure out how they're going to get people into this country and whatnot. And so if you had some kind of ability, some radar detection, whatever, I guess that would be helpful. But I guess the most of it, like, do you want to take drones out of the hands of you and I and make it so that it's regulated, that you have to have some kind of beacon on it so that it can be traceable or trackable? And I think abuse is probably going to push us more in that direction. We've all heard the stories about somebody sunbathing in their backyard and a drone hovers over. You don't know whose that is. I mean, what do? You call the authorities, and the authorities don't know what to do with it, especially if it up and leaves. So yeah, there has to be some kind of regulation to keep kind of keep that industry honest, because that using tools the wrong way is the best way to take it out of mine and your hands. When I started getting in drone flying, there was an FAA permit that you can do as just an individual. You registered with the federal government. They gave you a license number, and you had to tag your drone with that license number, the battery, the drone, everything, so that if it was lost or it was captured or whatever, it could be identified as something that was owned by you. You couldn't have this anonymous drone that was flying around. So yeah, I'm sure, my son and I probably will not be the participant in creating something like that, but I would not be surprised if there are drone security that will happen sometime in the future. So Scott, thank you for that question. I appreciate it. And with the rest of the AI discussion that we were hitting, so you can create videos, you can create forgeries of videos, you can make people say something. Like, you can take if I've done enough vocal things on YouTube or whatever, AI can gather how I say words and how I express myself, and it can recreate me digitally and make me say pretty much anything. So there's a future ahead of us where I don't necessarily think you're going to know what you're looking at, whether or not it's real or not. And so having technologies that that can sense or secure that a little bit. So if they had me saying something and they published it, and how do I prove that I didn't say it unless there was some kind of device or some kind of way of decrypting the video, or some thumb or fingerprint on it that would say this is a digital recreation or something like that? It's going to be something problematic. With augmented reality, I don't know if you guys have seen the Apple device, the visor that you put on, $4,000 device, $4,500 device, and it has cameras that show you sort of what's in front of you. Okay, so you see a little bit of the real world, but it also docks things that are not part of the real world, like your desktop. You can do computing, you can search Facebook, you can tweet things and check your email and whatever, all within this little visor. So we're embracing this, but all of the people who saw ahead of time what this was going to become, there's a lot of these fears that are going to be realized in the short term. So I'm kind of with you that smart people have to kind of get a handle on this, so that we're not going to pay that consequence that everybody saw that was a possibility. So 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. And here's one that there was an article about this morning. They have chat bots, right? So you have these AIs that will have conversations with you, and a lot of lonely people are creating chat bots as relationship bots. And you can kind of see where this is going with, maybe the outside world you're not participating in very well, but you could talk to a chat bot that won't, criticize you or do any of the stuff that you don't want to do, anyway, you can create a girlfriend or a boyfriend that's a chatbot. And so a lot of these lonely people are committing to relationships with digital companions. And now it's just over texting. But, sometime in the future, there might be robotics that you can create your perfect relationship through, like an Android or or a robot. And this is totally science fiction. Like, you could have told me that this was going to happen. I would say, no, human beings will never commit to that. We're better than that. But that's on the horizon. This is an actual article on The Verge this morning that that people are committing to unreal relationships. So that goes into the real world. Then you can have relationships where you create a version of yourself in these simulated worlds, looking exactly how you would want to look. You can reinvent yourself and make you look anything. So you might have a relationship with someone that you've never met. You've been dating an avatar in some kind of simulated space, and you can do all of the things that you would do in a normal relationship. So that's out ahead of us a little bit, but it was just kind of interesting that it's an actual consideration now. So 330-729-9977. So let's talk a little bit about computers. And part of what Youngstown Computer does is we service and help implement some of these technologies in both businesses and residences. And the game's kind of changing. I mean, it's not what it was, 5 years ago, where your primary input was a terminal in front of your keyboard and mouse, and it's switched now that your primary is your phone and your tablet. So with that, you're carrying your computer around 24 hours a day. The next generation has like 5 or 6, up to 8, 9 hours a day of screen time that they're dancing with. And it's getting harder and harder to say, less screen time, get in the natural world, when it's so prevalent in our families and kids. But there's a downside, a definite downside to separating from human connection in the digital world. So we're going to talk a little bit more about computers when we come back from this break. 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. HIMS.com/JOY.
Ohio's Career Technical Education program isn't just about learning a trade. If college is the path your child wants to take, Career Tech can help. They will learn invaluable leadership skills, gain hands-on experience, and earn college credit to propel them into their future. So whether they want to jump straight into the workforce or move on to higher education, Ohio's Career Technical Education program will help them every step of the way. Visit education.ohio.gov/careertech to find out how you and your child can shape your future your way.
It's auction time again in North Lima, Ohio, with home improvement products and building materials, and it's all online, ending this Tuesday at 12 noon. Go to pbauctions.com and register to bid on name brand home improvement products online. Kitchens, flooring, Anderson windows and doors, decking, unclaimed freight, and more, all sold online at pbauctions.com. Auction ends this Tuesday at noon, so we'll see you online at the auction.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danyi.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. This article says on January 31st, the FCC voted to outlaw AI-generated robocalls that contain AI-generated voices, fake robocalls that were claiming to be from President Biden ahead of the New Hampshire primary caused widespread alarm about the potential for counterfeit voices, images, and videos in politics. About a year ago, there was a robocall that went out. Actually, though, it may have been on Twitter. basically informing voters that the date of the date of the election has changed, and another one that they've allowed you to text vote rather than going in person. And when this hit, then it was tricking voters, and voters believed that they didn't then have to go to vote because they voted via text. And that threat that AI can be done anonymously, hard to tell where the source came from. And then so making it illegal is definitely a spot. But those who want to mess with our elections, could be, the political rival, could be countries outside. They want to create that chaos using technology that's harder to stop and defend against. So as voters, like, you got to be really careful about the data that you're collecting from social media, because a lot of it can be spoofed, and what you might be hearing or seeing might not be real. I believe somebody posted on social media that Alexa got a primary date wrong. I think it was like the primary was on the 19th and it said it was on the 15th. So if you depend on the information you collect from your, voice assistant, that you might get the wrong date. And it might have not been this year. It might have been giving you what the date was last year. So you got to be incredibly, aware that checking multiple sources on things before you just buy into something that you think is legit. It's almost like if you received a phone call and the caller ID was spoofed, where it made it look like it was coming from somewhere else, right? And then they can trick people using that as an authority, that if it says that it came from the White House, it must be Joe Biden's assistant, and the information might be, real. It lends credibility to things that may not be, maybe legit. So I wanted to mention that, especially during the election season, just be very vigilant about questioning and be critiquing some of the information that you get, because it absolutely, might not be real. And they're doing that on an individual basis. So those robocalls are coming to you as a voter specifically. And so you got to do it on your own, rather than somebody being able to, post it on Facebook and then having the authorities take it down so it doesn't have that kind of exposure. They can get to you, and that information can spread pretty easily. So that's just a little bit of a warning during this election season, to be very vigilant about the information. Check and recheck. When I want to get voter information, you go to the Secretary of State's website, or you can also go to your local Board of Elections website to get where you should vote and when. Take it very seriously, because these people are trying to really interfere with your right and your ability to vote. And that trickery, it's already started. So I would not be surprised if we saw more of it. So 330-729-9977, or text me at 333-1570. And Youngstown Computer brings you this show. So if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate the support. You can give our offices. We have commercial and residential services. So if you have a company needs IT, we are for hire. So we're contracted IT support. We will be your IT support. Free up some of that, that payroll, instead of having someone on, you have maybe 10 computers, maybe not enough computer work to have a full-time person. We're a perfect choice to have fill a couple hours a week worth of the stuff that you need to get done. And so give us our office call, 330-259-7278. You can also visit youngstowncomputer.com. You can schedule a service call, pick out your date, time, describe your services, and one of our techs will show up and take care of it. Again, both residential and commercial. So if you need Wi-Fi set up, maybe it's a little bit slower, there's some dead spaces in your house, we can expand your wireless. We can troubleshoot disconnection issues and drops or outages. We could sell equipment. So if you need cameras installed, or Ring doorbells or something like that, you want to add some tech into your life, we could definitely handle that, as well as the normal stuff like making your computer run faster, getting problems, troubleshooting, and teching out of the computer. Your hard drive's too small, you're running out of space, it's too slow, something like that. We can handle all that kind of stuff. So give us a call when you have a need, 330-259-7278. And if you don't have a need right now, I'd appreciate you if you took that phone number down, write it on a sticky note, and put it on the side of your computer, because there will be something in the future that you'll need our support with. And we'd love to be able to help you when that need arrives. 330-259-7278. also visit youngstowncomputer.com. So thank you. I appreciate it. We've been in business here for 20 years now, almost 20 years. And we've been serving the needs of the community ever since then. We love you guys. I love the loyalty of those listenership on the station and how much you've kind of carried our company over the years, and really appreciate all of you. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk some more about computers, but I'm open to all topics. If you want to give the show a call, you can text to the number 333-1570, or you can check us out on social media and ask your questions that way. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
Murder charges have been filed against a man accused in Tuesday's double shooting near the Xavier campus. One man was killed and another injured in the incident near the Listerman Brewing Company. 21-year-old Camonte Foster has been arrested and charged with the killing of 25-year-old D'Amico Nelson. Toledo police are asking for the public's help in finding two juveniles who've gone missing. Police say 12-year-old Christian Riven and 10-year-old Chrissa Riven never returned to their home on Virginia Street in North Toledo after going to school on Thursday. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. The Akron Zoo is offering free admission on Monday. The offer celebrates President's Day and hopes to offer something for the family to do while kids are off school. The zoo will be open on President's Day from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. Not only is admission free, but so is parking. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 2. Free never sounded so good. I'm free. The free iHeartRadio app in the App Store or online. 570 WKBN.
Weather brought to you by Mazza Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
A chance for snow showers lingers throughout your Saturday. An additional light coating to an inch of snow possible. High temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Snow showers begin tapering off this evening. Skies begin to clear heading into the overnight. Low temperatures fall into the upper teens. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
Ohio, ready for some quick mental health facts? Let's go. Nearly 2 million Ohioans live with a mental health condition. In the U.S., more than 50% of people will be diagnosed with a mental illness in their lifetime. Depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide. So why are some of us still stigmatizing people living with a mental health condition when we know all of this? Let's listen to the facts and beat the stigma. Ohio, challenge what you know about mental health at beatthestigma.org.
On March 19th, we have an opportunity to send one of Ohio's strongest conservatives back to the state Senate. That's Sandra O'Brien. O'Brien is driven by hard work, personal responsibility, and conservative values. That's why President Trump's team chose O'Brien as an Ohio delegate for his 2024 campaign. A retired teacher and a tireless advocate for our children, Sandra knows that strong families are what matter most in supporting our kids. That's why O'Brien has championed conservative legislation to help veterans, create good-paying jobs, and eliminate the state income tax so you can keep more of what you earn. Sandra O'Brien has always defended our conservative values. That's why she is the only candidate who has earned the endorsement of the Ohio Republican Party, the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and the Buckeye Firearms Association. On March 19th, re-elect conservative Sandra O'Brien for state senate, our trusted conservative voice for Trumbull, Ashtabula, and Geauga counties.
Paid for by RSCC.
Go with your gut. Your dog's immune system is based in the gut. A diet lacking in nutrients can cause itching, scratching, and a weak immune system. However, there is a solution. DINOVITE. Dinovite.
It took a grand total of 2 weeks. The dog stopped itching, the hair stopped falling out.
Try Dinovite for free. Just pay shipping and handling. Learn more at dinovite.com/radio.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dinovite.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danyi.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I am Joe Danyi, your host, and we could talk about things in tech, things that interest us. I will share some current events. We'll talk about computers themselves. And like I said, the computer industry has gotten very, I don't know, it seemed like it used to be very chaotic, where there was always problems with your computer. There was always repairs that had to been done or upgrades. And I think the equipment investment is, especially on my side, I don't feel like I'm spending as much money on replacing things. I mean, my iPhone, I'm getting like 2 or 3 years out of a phone when it used to be like I was in this constant cycle of getting the next new one every year. And I don't know if it's the allure is gone. I don't know if the innovations just aren't as, you know, as appealing anymore, but I feel like I'm hanging on to things a little bit longer and things are lasting a little bit longer. I have a theory that we're going to have, you know, more robust equipment in the future. I think these things are going to be more appliance like, where you buy them and they just kind of do their thing, and you know, they self heal and they self update. And it's great for consumers. I really think that the less you have to be frustrated by having to repair something, you know, the better overall. You include it more in your daily life, with your GPS always working, and your communications always, you know, going the way that they should. You almost kind of take it for granted at that point. And I don't know how much more innovations, you know, can even happen when it gets to the point where we're not like demanding there was something new and different. And that's why I think we're close to having some kind of, you know, principled leap on how we do things. Again, getting into science fiction land here, you know, we do a lot of typing and talking, and in the future, we may be able to send ideas to people without having to convert it to communication. Neuralink, you know, started working on this a couple years ago, where they were putting these electrodes, these little connectors, actually inside the brain and connecting it to an input source, that you can interface someone's brain from computers and from a network, right? And so what and kind of like painting this picture, they would take a pig at the time, and they would wire the brain in, and they would take something and put it in front of the pig, like we'll say an orange ball, and they would map whatever the pig's brain did when it saw the orange ball, and they would replicate it again, and they would see the brain comes to life in the same way when that orange ball. So the idea of the orange ball could be mapped, and if I wanted to then transmit the orange ball directly to the pig without having to push it through its eyeballs and translate it to an idea, if I could just push the profile directly to the brain, then the concept would be in its entirety. You wouldn't have to like decrypt and, you know, encrypt and decrypt it. So what that means is if you lost your eyesight, right, we might be able to load your brain and send you images that your eyeballs aren't able to process, and your brain's not able to process and formulate an image. We might be able to send the direct image directly to your brain. And that way, future communications might be where we're sending an entire idea to you. If you watch The Matrix, they plug the back of the head, they put the connector into the back of the head, and in like 30 seconds, he would know kung fu. He would know how to fly a helicopter. And these ideas were put in without having to, like what we do. We go through 12 years of schooling to learn something, because it's preached at us, and we put it in writing. We talk about it, we illustrate it. But what if we could just take the whole profile? Well, Neuralink has, I think, its first human input. Like there's an actual person that's carrying around the technology. So is that appealing? Would you like to, you know, if you had an idea that you wanted to send to your wife and you thought about it and then you sent that thought via the network, would that be easier than sitting down and having a conversation about it? Do we get smarter because of it? How do we evolve as a species when we can throw around ideas rather than talking and communication? So figured I'd mention that. 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. And as you can tell, I'm very fascinated with what's to come next. It's helpful in, you know, orienting ourselves to know, you know, how we're going to hit the next decade and what jobs are going to be offered. You're telling a 13 and 14-year-old what they should be getting involved in, because it's going to be beneficial to having a career sometime in the future when they know, you know, what consumers are going to require. And that whole simulation thing becomes more, possible, I guess, in the future. So 330-729-9977. We could talk about things directly with computers. So and I am kind of curious as to listeners here, what's your primary device? Where are you doing most of your communicating? Are you on a PC? You're on a tablet, on the phone? If you want to share that with me, you can text me that as well. Little unofficial poll to see what we're all still using. I will say 90% of me is on a phone, and 10% in the mornings in front of an actual PC. And that's just PCs getting less and less and less as years go by. So 330-729-9977. Not much in the, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I was able to talk to a NASA aerospace engineer, and he spoke over at Boardman. He lives down in Huntsville, Alabama, and we were talking about the space program. And we are on our way to visiting the moon since the 60s. And it's been quite a long time since we got beyond, the upper orbit of the Earth. And aside from sending some rovers and some equipment, people have not ventured very far, away from where we're at right now. So I'm excited to see where space exploration is part of that career thing, where NASA's involved again. They're making things and innovating. 330-729-9977. Let's go to Denny. Denny, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I've got a question for you. Maybe you can help me out understand the next wave of communications.
Yes.
I had an outage on my landline phone. Believe it or not, I still have one of those.
Okay.
And when I complained to AT&T about the spotty service and asked why they weren't reinvesting in it, they said, well, because our plans are to get rid of landline phones as you know them. And they explained that apparently copper wire is going to be replaced by fiber. And apparently the state of Ohio has had legislation to allow them to discontinue landline service at some point when they get the fiber up. So I wonder if you would have any insight as to how this is going to work. They're still going to offer some kind of landline or some kind of alternative to cell service that's going to go through the fiber. And the people there said that it would be voice over internet protocol, basically talking over the internet. How reliable do you see that technology will be as it evolves?
And most of the phone conversations are already doing that at some point. Your integration into that system is done analog through copper, but it gets switched into a digital network at some point, and it's already kind of doing that. So it's just kind of extending that all the way out to the end user. So I think the reliability will be no better or no better or worse than it is right now. It'll be probably exactly the way that it is now. What it does do, it kind of cuts out the provider of those services. So you might not have to push your phone communication through AT&T. As long as you have a connection to the network, you can use, make a phone call using Twitter, and it goes from me to Twitter to the end user, and then we cut everybody else out of the equation. They also have point-to-point where I can call you directly, and it's not necessarily going from any kind of intermediary. So that's kind of the way that it's going to take shape.
Okay, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, we do this over the internet. Now we're vulnerable to nation states and bad actors hacking or conversations to either disrupt it entirely or to eavesdrop, whatever it is that they want to do. And I'm just wondering if the safeguards are built into this technology so people can actually have a private conversation that's reliable.
Yeah, and that's, Twitter, if you look into what Elon Musk is doing with the point-to-point on there, they're doing encrypted communications, where they're putting a very high bar on how secure those communications are, so that you can't have somebody that's an intermediary, recording or hacking, or what you mentioned, having parallel systems, that if I was a bad actor and I wanted to take out communication, would I hit one company like AT&T that takes out everybody's communication, or do you have all of these systems that are running in parallel that if I take out one, it really didn't take out the whole country kind of thing?
Well, it sounds like it could be very interesting, but it also sounds like it could be fraught with problems. I guess we'll have to see how it works out.
Absolutely. Denny, thank you for calling. Appreciate you being out there, and thank you for that question. Whoops. Okay. So anyway, if it's heading that way, and the one part of this is whenever you have something that happens very quickly, and we lose a connection to it. So sometimes the copper was harder to make. I mean, copper's very insecure. I can come in, hook up some wires, and I can eavesdrop on your conversations by making a connection to copper, right? Digital is a little bit harder, right? But it's still possible. And if it's happening anonymously, where I don't have to come to your house and I don't have to, ping in right at your box there, then I can do it from countries away. It becomes a little bit easier. So thank you for that call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Dave next. Dave, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Hey, Joe. I just wanted to add this last caller. VoIP has been going for like 20 years. I've had Vonage from 6 months since their inception, and I've never dropped them. Their service has been very reliable. They have all the options that you would want for one money, very reasonably priced. And should you want to make overseas phone calls, the overseas phone calls are very reasonable as well. That's one of the reasons I kept them. We have friends that live in Australia, and our phone calls to Australia are like 5 cents a minute. So, you talk an hour for $3, it's pretty reasonable compared to what AT&T used to be back in the day. So, for his question about reliability, obviously it's only as reliable as your internet service when it comes to the home landline, and that's what I use the landline is Vonage. So they've been very good to me, and like I said, their end has always been very reliable, very reliable.
All right, Dave. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, and those parallel systems is what I was talking about, where if you have a single one entity that sells you service that comes from a line that comes to your house, like fiber optics come to your house, and then your internet comes from Armstrong, Spectrum, AT&T, whoever your provider is. But if you have other things like cellular networks and you have satellite networks, you have choices that not everybody's part of that same system, then if one's taken out, you have the option. So for instance, let's just say that the fiber optic, the network from Spectrum gets taken out. Well, you can then fire up your cellular connection or your satellite connection, hook Vonage or voice over IP, you get on that internet connection, your phone service is back in play because it doesn't care what internet is coming to your house as long as you have some internet. And the more systems we have, the better. 330-729-9977. Let's go to Bob next. Bob, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Good afternoon. I got a question about these home security cameras.
Yeah.
That they actually act like a light bulb. You can screw them into a light fixture, and then you can remotely control them. A friend of mine suggested that there's a problem with, since most of them are, produced in China anyway, about the Chinese hacking those. And let's say getting information about your home or your operation or anything going on in your vicinity, unbeknownst to you as an end user. And do you have any information for us, Joe, about that kind of a concern and or any recommendations to some of the better units that might be out there that we would have some protection against hacking, I guess is the word I'm thinking of?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. And that kind of talk has been going on for a while. So you get these producers that are making chips or equipment coming from overseas. And how do you know if something wasn't, put into that device that allows somebody else to have access to whatever it is that you're doing? And you can take some steps on your side to make sure that you are encrypting communication so that you are not just trusting one entity for everything. So for instance, when I'm using Spectrum's internet, I'm letting their network come to mine. And so that the traffic that I'm using, they're able to see. And so when I have one of these security cameras, it's taking video footage and it's uploading it to itself because it's all, hardware software, the cloud is all one company, then I have to trust the manufacturer and the service provider that they're here in the States, that their code is viewable, and they could be audited by, security specialists that say this is safe or whatnot. And so that's my recommendation, is to trust your brands that are not necessarily going to be all produced here in the States, but have operations here in the United States where laws apply, and that they don't have something that's so locked down that people can't investigate. I want them, to be very forthcoming about what it is they do and how they do it. Most of the, there is big security concerns. So part of the marketing there is to make consumers feel safe having them in their operations. So like you have a security camera, it uploads some video footage to the cloud, and if you have the ability to encrypt that footage so that even if they're housing it from you, that they can't even open up that cloud. That's what's important, right? To make sure that they market that they're secure end to end. And a lot of them are not. So it's up to the public to put pressure on the companies that are not open in that way, and they'll produce products that are secure. But it's not unfounded. It is. There's a lot of security professionals who share those same concerns that we brought up here. This is from a texter. It seems voice over IP calls could be encrypted, same as HTTPS connections encrypted end to end. Yeah, absolutely. And that is, you don't hear a lot of those providers talking about that much. You hear like the internet encryption ads for having, having some kind of application or utility that does that for the web, but you don't hear many on the other side. We'll talk more about that. We got some more texts coming in about this. 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments. And after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-805-7194. 800-805-7194. That's 800-805-7194.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit. hims.com/joy.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danyi.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. We were talking about encrypted communications. We had a caller call in and say that they received word that their copper or their extension to their home in the future may be replaced. And have to go to something digital. So that brought up the conversation about how secure is voice over IP or digital communications. And most of the providers are, have an element of security in mind when they do this. And for those of you who don't know what encryption is, so let's just say you take we use VPNs normally on the computer end. So you're staying in a hotel, you connect with the hotel's Wi-Fi, and now you're trusting that the hotel's Wi-Fi is legit, right? That you can trust them. They're not going to go through where you're visiting and any of the transactions that are happening. Now, if you are on a VPN, then what it does is it uses the hotel's internet, but it creates a pipe, right? And you're putting all of your traffic through an encrypted pipe so that the provider, the hotel, can't see the transactions. So you're contracting ExpressVPN or one of the other VPN providers you're trusting them that now they're seeing what you're doing and the hotel is not. So you still have to pick an authority that you do trust that promises that they're not using your information in a way, which most of the companies, they have a policy that they're not doing anything with your data or selling it to companies or looking at what you're doing or keeping it completely, I think in ExpressVPN's case, they dump all the logs out every night or whatever. So there's no permanent record of what you requested when you use their service. Let's see. This texter says voice over IP is utilized in virtually every cell phone and every call between centers. Very little difference will happen except things will be more dependable except during power failures. The old phones always worked because they ran on batteries in a central office. Voice over IP won't have that benefit, but security is much better than POTS. And so totally right. And, but even, during you get a power outage, it's locally, you lose everything except for, your cell phone. And if major parts of regular communication roll over to something that's cellular, your batteries run in the power side, and you have a tower that's away that's still, either on backup battery or on regular, not part of the power outage, you still have some forms of communication. And that's why there's going to be an advantage to that, to begin with. 330-729-9977. This was an article. This was 1 year ago. And what I said was X or Twitter wants users to start using Twitter as a communication service. And so the first layer of that last year was Twitter is launching an encrypted direct messaging on Wednesday. Musk said in a tweet late Tuesday that the latest version of the Twitter app contains changes to direct message or DMs non-public message users send to one another. The CEO said that users can now reply to any message in a direct message thread, not just the most recent, as well as use emojis to react to a message. Previously, users would only be able to reply to the latest message. So basically what it's saying is that through direct messages, where before those messages were readable by Twitter, they had copies of those, or not copies, but they could see in its real form. But when you encrypt it, it basically takes that data and it makes it unreadable. It passes through and it's not unencrypted until the recipient receives that message. And that's like a texter was saying, that you can do that with voice communications the same way, where if you tapped into a line where there was communications happening, you wouldn't be able to make anything out. It'd be gibberish. It would be just a data stream that couldn't be assembled and put back into voice because the authenticate or the encryption would be undone on the recipient. So my phone and your phone are talking, and when I say it, it's going into my phone, it's scrambling what I'm saying, and when it arrives to you, it unscrambles it, and then you can hear what I was saying. But anything along the way, you can't grab it and make any sense of it. So 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
Close the border, illegals out. Second Amendment, fund the police. Drill for gas, no men and women's sports or bathrooms. No trans surgery or hormones for kids. School choice, fund our military, and cherish our veterans. No forced masking or vaccines ever. I'm Dr. Rick Chai from East Palestine, an America First Republican who's big on love and tough on crime, endorsed by Ted Nugent. Let's win this, Ohio, for God and country. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Cleveland area attorneys. 5005 Rockside Road, Suite 350, Independence, Ohio, 44131.
From the Fairway Ford Studios, fairwayfordohio.com. Fairway, that's the way we do business. This is News Radio 570 WKBN, Youngstown. The time is 2 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. A firefighter has died after a home gas explosion in Virginia. 45-year-old Trevor Brown was a volunteer from Sterling. 10 firefighters, 2 civilians also hurt in the explosion. Loudoun County Fire Chief Keith Johnson.
Quite frankly, we're probably lucky we only have one fatality. 14 people injured. Our folks were in that house when it exploded.
4 of the firefighters injured remain hospitalized. Vice President Kamala Harris and Ukrainian President Zelensky meeting today on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. This as in Ukraine, the first major city, Avdiivka, has fallen since the U.S. became deadlocked in sending aid. Zelensky saying Ukraine has no other options for moving forward without this aid.
We do not currently look into alternatives because we are counting on the United States as our partner, strategic partner.
Vice President Kamala Harris.
I also believe that there is consensus across party lines in the United States Congress that recognizes the brutal nature of Moscow's aggression and that there must be a response.
A New York State judge ordered former President Trump to pay more than $355 million in fines Friday afternoon in the civil fraud lawsuit that found Trump and his companies grossly inflated his personal fortune and real estate empire for years to help secure low-interest loans. ABC's Aaron Katursky has more.
The judge found Trump and his company repeatedly issued false financial statements that inflated his net worth by as much as $2 billion and exaggerated the value of his properties. Trump valued his Fifth Avenue penthouse at $200 million by tripling its square footage, though he signed a document conceding the place is a third the size. And he said his Florida estate, Mar-a-Lago, was worth $600 million. Its appraised value, $27 million.
You're listening to ABC News.
During his visit to East Palestine on Friday, President Biden said that 6 grants will be awarded by the National Institutes of Health to research universities to learn about the effects of last year's train derailment. One of those grants, he says, will go to Cleveland's Case Western Reserve University. The president also said the blame for the derailment is squarely on the shoulders of Norfolk Southern.
There are acts of God. This was an act of greed that was 100% preventable. We were pushing the railroads to take more precautions, to deal with braking, to deal with a whole range of things that were not dealt with.
The president also pushed for passage of the Railroad Safety Act, which is co-sponsored by Ohio U.S. Senators J.D. Vance and Sherrod Brown, but has been stuck in committee. School districts in Ohio are getting millions of dollars after the first year of legal sports betting in the state. The first payments from sports gambling revenue went out to school systems beginning last September. Columbus City Schools, the largest public school district in Ohio, received $197 million in total funding, including sports wagering dollars and money from the state general fund and lottery system. Cleveland Metropolitan Schools and Toledo Public Schools both got higher payments, receiving roughly $332 million and $208 million respectively. An investigation is underway into allegations that recently resigned Chardon High School principal Douglas Murray changed grades and altered student academic records. No criminal charges have been filed in the case, but Chardon Police Chief Scott Nehas told 3 News there is an investigation.
It was an allegation of grade tampering. We were brought in to conduct an investigation. So we're very preliminarily involved at this point. The school's been very transparent and open with us. So our investigation is currently ongoing.
The Chardon schools say the academic records of only 2 students were affected. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 2:30.
570 WKBN, Johnstown, Ohio.
Weather brought to you by Mazda Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
A chance for snow showers lingers throughout your Saturday. An additional light coating to an inch of snow possible. High temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Snow showers begin tapering off this evening. Skies begin to clear heading into the overnight. Low temperatures fall into the upper teens. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
The rule of law is under attack.
On college campuses, violence is on the rise.
And authorities in that city said they will not arrest shoplifters who participated.
Citizens sued because the agency ignored the Constitution.
The way out of the chaos depends on electing conservative judges who will stand by the Constitution. That's Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey, running for Court of Appeals.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Gun owners, pro-life advocates, and Trump supporters across Eastern Ohio are supporting Caitlin Dickey because they know she can be trusted.
Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's the conservative Republican.
Caitlin Dickey is endorsed by Sheriff Brian McLaughlin and more than 20 conservative Republican leaders. Defender of the Constitution. Vote Caitlin Dickey for judge.
Paid for by Dickey for judge.
Grammy-nominated Joe Bonamassa, hailed as one of the world's greatest guitar players. Blues rock titan Joe Bonamassa, performing live on February 21st at the Covelli Center. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss the guitar event of the year, Joe Bonamassa.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I am Joe Danyi, your host, and we're talking things in tech, a lot of encryption, security minded discussion today. But I want to hear from you. I want to see what you think, because not all of us are on the same page on this. I actually had a conversation with a surveillance guy earlier in the week, and he believes that the camera installations, almost like what the European model, where they have a lot of on every street corner they have a camera that interfaces, tracks people, and when there are criminals, that they can easily track their movements and identify, see what they did. They have historical data on it, and they have real time, where you really can't get away with much when everything has surveillance that are just blanketing all of your public streets. So when you're out in public, how much of the security should the government have access to, or how much of the surveillance ability should the government have? So there was a terrorist that had an iPhone that had data on it that was encrypted, and the government went to Apple and said, "Hey, this is a terrorist. We need this information," and they pushed back against it, because if they would unlock it, then it wasn't really encryption. If someone had the key to the encryption, then how much can you trust a company to be able to push that? But then what about from the law enforcement standpoint? So what's a good balance between no security and everything could be known by everyone, to limited? Like what are our tolerances? What are we willing to put up with? Do we put police, law enforcement at a disadvantage to criminals when they can't get to information because how security minded we are? So I want you to share with me how deep, how much ability, because we can make devices that literally cannot be broken by anyone. They're yours and yours alone, and the encryption's good enough that if you don't have the key, nobody else does but you. So it is possible, but law enforcement again would have that disadvantage. So in the future, like even places like the IRS could do digital investigations on you, monitor your financial situations, how you're spending money, passing information through banks. Like they do it kind of manually, where it's a reporting system. But in the future, they could have tools that look for anomalous behaviors that criminals would use. So, I'm a libertarian, so I don't trust any government enough to be able to give them the ability to do it for the right reasons. So I've got to, limit what I would, I'd be willing to do, because I think that they would use it wrongly more. I don't have a trust for them that they wouldn't use it in a wrong way. But if let's just say that the IRS said, hey, you know what, open everybody up to transactions so we can see that when drug dealers are moving money somewhere. And okay, well, that's good, noble usage. But now that, a government agency can peek into everybody's finances and see things moving around, how much would I get caught in that net, or you would get caught in that? So what are your tolerances for security when it comes to tech? 330-729-9977, or you can text me at 333-1570. This texter asked me about my hearing aid. Yes, it's about a year that I've been, really what we do is when anything new hits the market, I like to kind of test things out. And about a year ago, the over-the-counter hearing aids were made available. Before, they were okay. Like I've always had a hearing problem, and I got fitted for traditional hearing aids, but I couldn't get used to them. So I ended up not wearing them, and it's not a fun thing to be out in public and not being able to hear like 90% of all the speech that's around you. And so when OTC hearing aids came out, I jumped on it. Sony had the first batch. I tried it. It feels a lot like when you have a AirPods in. That's the feeling in your ear. And where I can't wear them, I don't find myself wearing them like all the time. When I go into a public space or I need to hear something like here at the radio station, I'll pop them in, and they function as like AirPods, where I can take calls on them, I can listen to podcasts on them, and then they also serve as being able to hear people in public. So yes, I still give them high marks. They're probably, when you compare them pricing wise, that they're probably about a quarter of what the traditional hearing aids cost me when I did it the first time around. They have all the features that I need, and you could just buy them without having to go to an audiologist. The phone had a hearing test where it would pump certain frequencies through them, so it would calibrate itself based on what I said I could hear. And most of the time I am offload to the professional across the board, right? So if I'm not going to have you go do TurboTax over an accountant when you have something very important, because that person can advocate. You're never going to get a substitute for a human, technology for a human being. And so this was the first time that I kind of felt a little dirty about using an app to qualify me, for hearing aids. So I was a little suspicious going in that I was going down the wrong path by doing this, and it ended up, working out. I'm sure they had audiologists that put the app together. I'm sure they knew what they were doing. The test is probably not as good as I would have gotten had I done a traditional hearing test, but it checked all the boxes. And this is one of the ways where I think direct to consumer model really does work. I like when the consumer's in control, where we're not tied to one provider. And just going back on Spectrum and AT&T, these companies invested millions of dollars to connect all of our houses to copper, right? They put in the infrastructure, and so you were tied to them because they spent the money to get the stuff to you. So you were forced to buy from them because they had to recoup their investment of that infrastructure. And I talk to people all the time that live way out in, their one house 20 miles away from anybody else. So there really isn't a company that will run infrastructure to you. And so they don't get the same connections that we do. So with technology and the ability for consumers to decide where they're getting their stuff from, you can go cellular, you can go, satellite now. I think it creates a little bit new competition, because I think we were losing, your cable bill kept going up because of you were paying for channels that you would never watch, and they give the consumers the ability to pick out the channels that they only want. You were able to lower your bills, and that hurt a lot of networks that only survived because you were forced to buy them with your package. And you break that up and give consumers more individual control. And I think it does on the long term make things better. It disrupts things on the short term, but long term, I think that's the better way. I mean, honestly, look at everything. You want a song, you buy the song. You don't have to buy the whole album. Everything sort of like decentralizes and makes it more of a buffet than buy the whole thing. So, but we go our consuming goes back and forth. We go through this. We want something super small, then we want something super big, then we want something decentralized, and then we get back to being centralized because there's no, neither one of them is perfect enough to say decentralized definitely has its downside, a lot of upside, but also some downside. So that's why when we have these conversations on the radio, it allows us to warm up to what we decide. We get to overall decide, and as conditions change, we get to change our minds along with it. So maybe we want no security, and we're like, maybe no security is not the best idea. Maybe some security with stipulations. All right, now too much security or over here, and too much regulation, and you got it. Too many people are in control that I don't trust. Like, let's go and make it less open and more secure. So that's why we have these conversations, because it changes every day. And I want you, as the listener of the show, that when these things happen, that we had lots and lots of previous conversations about it. Do we, what is AI going to become? And it's going to serve us in certain ways, and it's going to hurt us in certain ways. So we take the ways that I described that it's going to hurt us, and we figure out how we want to manage and handle that stuff. So thank you for that question. And yes, so the hearing aids still are a year, and I'm still using them. I did have one of them conk out on me, and I had to go back to Sony, and they sent me a fresh pair, and so they lasted about one of them went out. I think it was probably a battery issue, but I'm kind of, being that they're so new, wondering how long they're made to last. I think my brother had traditional hearing aids, and he maybe 8-10 years they lasted, and you had a person that could service them. Like, where would you even take a over-the-counter hearing aid? Or because they're a quarter of the cost, maybe they're disposable, and when they're end of life, you throw them away and you buy a new pair. That could be it as well. So I do want to know, surveillance and security. Do you wish the European model where there were more surveillance everywhere so you couldn't get away with anything? I mean, think about, as you go throughout your day, how many times you are photographed, and you're on video somewhere, and you walk into a store and you notice that monitor that shows you on camera, and it kind of puts you in check a little bit. Like, psychologically, it says, someone's watching me here. I don't want to be picking my nose or doing anything I wouldn't want people to watch. And for the most part, most of that security, nobody's physically watching. You're just part of a record somewhere that if they wanted to go back and have AI dig through you, it could track you, like where your movements were, what parking lot you were in, where you visited afterwards. And if you did do something wrong, like rob somewhere, they can find out where you live by reviewing and rewinding all of the tapes that got you there and find out what you did previous. So good tool for law enforcement. If you want to be anonymous, not so great of a tool. So 330-729-9977. You can give me a call, talk about this all you want. 333-1570 for the text messages. Joe, my hard drive filled up on my computer. How do I empty the drive? All right. So most of it, it's really going to depend on what filled it up. Okay. So in most cases, we fill up our stuff with things like videos, pictures, music, movies. That's really what's occupying most of that, that free space on your hard drive. So if it's that, and it's pretty easy. So every once in a while, maybe once a year, we archive all of that stuff onto an external hard drive. So I have a couple of Seagate hard drives. I'll plug those suckers in, and I'll take any of my old stuff. My music stays there, but a lot of the pictures and stuff that I'm not looking through every day, I just need to warehouse them somewhere. I'll take those and I'll offload them onto an external hard drive, and it frees my space up on my local drive. So you can either do it with a physical external hard drive, where you can get like $100, 5 terabyte external drive, and just do it right there, and then you own it. Or you can do something like the cloud, where you could take something like Dropbox or Google Images. And once they're uploaded to the website, then you can free this local drive space off. And now they just reside up on, the cloud or wherever it's synchronized. So use that to your advantage to free up that space. Now, one thing you want to consider, most of those like Google Images will take pictures when you upload them and videos when you upload them, and they're not as high resolution as when they were on the phone. There'll be some compressions and some optimizations that go up there to just have enough space on your cloud drive. And so you lose a little bit. So if you're intending on, printing a full poster of whatever it is, you're going to want the highest resolution, and that might not be good enough. But for your day-to-day, I took some pictures, shared it on social media. It's a really good storage place to leverage the clouds. On my phone's my biggest peeve. And that one, I use 3 different backups. I use Apple, I use Dropbox, and I also use Google Images. So I actually have all the pictures and videos on my phone are in 3 different locations in case something should ever happen to my phone. And then I can easily delete or remove those pictures on the local phone, on a regular basis. It's an expense. I think it's like $10 a month is what I pay for Dropbox, and another $10 to Apple. No, maybe it's only $2 for Apple. But that's plenty of storage space for everything, that I need from my phone. And then I'll do a local backup every once in a while where I'll pull it down to the local computer. So I got it in multiple places. But if you go into the options on your phone, you can get sort of like a storage summary of what's taking up all of your space. Sometimes you might have mapping software that has a bunch of maps downloaded and it's taking up gigs of your phone storage, and you can get rid of those. But it'll tell you in a graph form where you're losing most of your space, and then you can figure out what you need to do, delete some programs or move some stuff over. But that's the way that I do it, and it's probably the easiest and cheapest way to do it, either external hard drive or leverage the cloud. So thank you for that question. 330-729-9977. We got about another half hour before scooting out of here for today. You can text me also at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danyi.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. You can give me a call, 330-729-9977, or text me at 333-1570. Joe, what is an NFT and are they dead? All right. So this was a controversial thing a couple years ago where there was a lot of people, and let me first explain what an NFT is. It's sort of like it's a digital certification of ownership of something. And back 2 years ago, they were brand new, and you had all of these things circulating where these NFTs were being sold for like millions of dollars. And now you don't hear so much about NFTs because they kind of were very faddish. Now they have a utility. So NFT is a provable, it's lodged in a blockchain to prove ownership that is non-transferable, non-fakeable, and it can be sold. So if I had a piece of digital artwork that translated to an NFT, I could sell you the NFT. It's similar to back in the late 90s, I believe, Topps baseball cards came out with e-Topps, right? And what it was you could buy a baseball card, but you would never take ownership of the baseball card. The baseball card sat in a vault somewhere at Topps headquarters, but you owned the digital certification of ownership. And then I can trade that e-Topps to you, and then you would then own that. Now, nobody ever took possession of those cards. I guess if you ever wanted to, you can execute your e-Topps, and then they would kill the digital version and they would send you the actual physical card. But think about in that deal where it's never going to be broken. It's always going to be pristine. It's sitting in its printed purity. And now it doesn't have to get all broken up, right? It all damaged or whatever. So that was sort of like the first metaphor for what an NFT. Second question, is it dead? I don't think it's going to exist the way that it did before. It was kind of hokey, kind of scammy. People didn't understand it. People were spending a bunch of money in something that was kind of invisible, whatever, because I just don't think the utility of it was realized until, something recently. I believe, that there will be things in the future right now that are like voting, for instance, that if you wanted to make voting more secure, you would have to have a proof system that also was non-fakeable, where it originated from you and nobody had the ability to change it. You lodged it in a blockchain that was provable, it's verifiable, you could check it. And then I think in the future, we'll use something like an NFT to lodge our information into that nobody else can change. That's my best bet as to how something like that will be used. There's still some function for it. I mean, if you want to, have proof of ownership over a physical good, it's still a really good way of having a certification that is part of like a permanent record. So that's how I foresee NFTs to exist sometime in the future, but I don't think it'll ever be the $1 million transfers anymore. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. More computer questions here. So Joe, do you trust the contactless payment systems that they have in grocery stores and retail stores? Yeah, I use that stuff all the time. And what this is you have different payment systems that instead of your accounts being attached to a magnetic stripe or a chip on a card, your phone or your watch tells a payment system who you are, and it then transmits your account information to the payment system. And it's doing the same thing as if you swiped your card. It's just a different method of connecting it in. Now, the way that you initiate this is it's not transmitting all the time, right? So you're not walking by something and your card's being broadcast. If you ever want to check that out, try to hold it up to a payment system without the app being initialized and your face being scanned or whatever, and it's not going to trigger the system. So it's something that you have to initiate in order for it to use. Now, when it's on, it is transmitting, and things that are close by can read, and it's got to be like within inches of the contactless, payment system. You got to hover it over a couple inches before it will read. So you would have to get some kind of device if you wanted to hijack someone's number. You have to get super close when you're broadcasting, and very impossible. So yes, I do trust that. I use it all the time. The way that mine works, I use Apple Pay, and I load a physical credit card number into Apple Pay. And then when I go into, oh no, not Apple Pay, I load it into Apple's wallet, and then I use the Apple Pay protocol to use that credit card. So it's just a digital version of that card. And I do have to mention this was asked earlier in the week. They are making virtual credit cards now for your physical credit cards, and they're rotating these cards a little bit more, a little bit more frequently. So maybe you have one that's physically printed on your card, and you can use the virtual version of that and not ever release the one that's sitting on your card. I've done that a couple times where the virtual one I feel like is more disposable, and instead of me having to get a new 16 digit. But I pray for the day where the 16-digit credit card number goes away, because it is so not necessary. And if we can get credit cards that have a different way of connecting accounts that doesn't involve a 16-digit number, that will set a new a new future in front of us. So hopefully that goes away pretty soon. All right, like I said, we got about 20 more minutes of the show. If you want to get any questions about computers or AI or technology, you can get that in before we end today. 330-729-9977, or you can text me at 333-1570. Those text messages I will read, and I got a couple from last week that I'm going to go, or 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to read as well when we get back from this break. Again, 330-729-9977. Text me at 333-1570. You're listening to the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN. I'll be back.
We've got a crisis at the border, the Ohio border. I see kids in my practice dropping like flies due to drugs. Don't think it can't happen to your kid too. If you want to stop eating junk food, stop bringing it in the house. The first step to drug prevention is to stop bringing it here. Join me, Dr. Rick Chai, and let's close our southern borders. Let's finish the wall and get back to legal immigration. I'm Rick Chai, and I approve this message. Paid for by Dr. Rick Chai for Congress.
A shooting Thursday night inside a home on Baden Street in Toledo has left one man dead. The incident happened around 8 p.m. The victim's name has not yet been released. Police say a woman is being questioned as a witness to the shooting. No arrests have been made. The case against a Campbell woman accused of killing her boyfriend in Girard has been bound over to the Trumbull County Grand Jury. Kristen Schmidt is accused of shooting her boyfriend, Michael Cusick, in January. Schmidt told police Cusick was trying to break into her home and that she and Cusick had been fighting all night. Wright State University is suspending admissions for nearly 36 degree programs. Provost Amy Thompson says eliminating programs that have low or no enrollment allows educators to improve and expand other courses that remain in demand. Students who are already enrolled in one of the impacted courses will be allowed to finish their studies. I'm Andy Betts.
Our next update at 3. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, news, talk, and sports radio. Podcasts too. Download the app. Free never sounded so good.
Weather brought to you by Mazza Heating and Cooling and Bryant, keeping you comfortable year-round.
A chance for snow showers lingers throughout your Saturday. An additional light coating to an inch of snow possible. High temperatures in the mid to upper 20s. Snow showers begin tapering off this evening. Skies begin to clear heading into the overnight. Low temperatures fall into the upper teens. With your Storm Team 27 weather forecast, I'm meteorologist Kyle Alexander.
All rise.
In today's dangerous world, we need a judge who will be fair and who will keep our community safe. That's conservative Republican Municipal Court Judge Caitlin Dickey. She's running for Court of Appeals.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with experience prosecuting criminals and getting them off our streets.
She's a protector.
And Judge Caitlin Dickey is the only candidate in the race with judicial experience issuing protection orders for women and children.
She's a protector.
Judge Caitlin Dickey respects our U.S. Constitution and proudly took the oath to protect it.
She's a protector. Judge Caitlin Dickey has the experience we need. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the Constitution. Judge Caitlin Dickey, protector of the people. Vote conservative Republican Judge Caitlin Dickey for Court of Appeals.
Paid for by Dickey for Judge.
You still thinking job change in the new year?
Yeah, I need something that's in high demand and more stable in this economy.
IT?
Yeah, cybersecurity, maybe even AI.
That's what I did.
Really? How?
Went to My Computer Career. You don't need any prior experience, and you could start your new career in a matter of months. A lot of IT pros go to school there, too, to level up.
Sweet. Are classes online or on campus?
Both.
Wow, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Make this your year. Take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Cleveland area attorneys. 5005 Rockside Road, Suite 350, Independence, Ohio, 44131.
You're hearing the Youngstown Computer Show on News Radio 570 WKBN with Joe Danyi.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Youngstown Computer Show. I started an interesting conversation today about EVs. And I posted a picture of a trip that someone took from Ohio to Florida. And on that trip, they stopped 8 times to charge up, about every 171 miles. They had to stop for 20 minutes and charge their battery. And so they got there, and the total cost for charging was $105 for that trip. And it added about 2 hours onto the overall trip. And I've traveled with my EV before, and it's not as good, right? So I went to Mansfield last week, and there was a supercharging station that was about 20 miles away from my where I was staying. And so like I had to stop on the way there, and then I'd drive back there to get around town once I was there because I didn't have any destination chargers. And I'd charge again to be able to get home. And it really does add a lot of time to your stops. I'm used to, the NASCAR pit stop, hurry up and get this thing, get gas in the car and on. So it really does add a considerable amount of time. And so whenever we talk EV, it really brings up both sides. So you got a whole group that can't wait to see EVs die, and then you got the other group that are pro EV, and they're willing to embrace something as it's developing up. And the range on these batteries and the length that it charges does not make it superior to an ICE vehicle on long distance travels. I would choose a gasoline engine for long distances way before I would do EVs. Now, local stuff, I don't ever have to go to the gas station. I plug in when I get home. I have a full tank of gas every day. I don't go beyond 220 miles in any given regular day in business. So it just saves me a ton of time from going to the gas station. But it's definitely not, better, in that respect. So in my case, when I travel, like my car came, one of the selling points was that they gave you free supercharging for life. And so because I charge at my house, I only have to use the supercharger. So I don't really take advantage of that. But if I did make a big trip, I would have saved myself any expense for being able to fuel up, between stops. So Joe, what happens when it gets cold or when the superchargers are filled? I imagine you're saying like the stalls, like they're competition. That's happened a couple times. Happened a couple times in California where they had this long line to wait to get charges. Too many Teslas came through town, and now, because it takes 20 minutes, you're waiting a whole 20 minutes. This isn't like sitting behind someone while they finish up, 2 minutes on a gas fill up. That can be considerable. And yeah, so densely populated Tesla users are going to swarm, especially after like a sporting event. Let's just say a football game lets out, and all the Teslas, before they go back home, they all stop at this one charging station that only has 10 stalls. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Now, the cold on a battery, it does degrade, right? It's so you lose probably maybe 25% of your range just because it's cold, and batteries don't function in cold as well as they do when they're at warmer temperatures. And it uses some of that power to keep the temperatures up in the battery pack. So it's almost like you got another heater that you're competing with. And then, so yeah, it's in cold weather, you get some degradation. So on long travels, that would matter. But again, day to day, like when I'm just driving around, I don't really even notice the 25%, but it was a good discussion. I like when we talk through this kind of stuff, because I'm always one that says both should exist. I'm not, EV shouldn't replace ICE cars, but it should be an option. In some ways, it is superior, and let consumers decide what they want to buy. I think it's wrong for any of these states to say that everything has to be electric, because it just makes that criticism be more fierce because it's not perfect yet. The charging system's not perfect. The capacity to charge all those vehicles isn't perfect yet. The battery densities, the materials costs. I mean, all of this stuff is not worked out. So I think it's a little premature to make that our go-to when there's so much more innovation that has to happen so that it can be your day-to-day driver and it could be something that you can travel with without the anxieties of what could possibly go wrong. So that's see what's the charge? It goes from state to state. So basically states that have higher electricity costs, the superchargers are also a little bit more expensive. So here in Ohio, ours was about 17 cents. California was about 25 cents. And this is like per kilowatt that it is used to fill the battery. And they also charge a little bit more at peak times. If you charge and you're not it gives preference to someone whose battery is almost down in the single digits versus somebody who's just topping off, trying to make it so that, the 20 or 30 or 45 minute squatters aren't topping off their battery. They wanted to make it more expensive. So you'll leave the stall and, move on. So 330-729-9977. You can text me at 333-1570. Let's see, Joe, I'm setting up a router and I am specifying a black and a white list. Where do you get a white list? Okay, so how routers work is I'm assuming you're doing like parental controls. And what you're doing is you're setting anybody who connects through your router, you can pretty much ban certain sites. Like you can make it so that your users on your router can't get to certain sites. All right, so let's just say I had a blacklist set up at my office and I didn't want anybody to be able to get to Facebook or Twitter. I can go into the router and I can go to the blacklist section and I can type in twitter.com, x.com, facebook.com. Now, when anybody brings up a browser and tries to go to that site, my router will kick it back and say, this site isn't reachable from the internet, or it'll give some message that says you can't get to this site from this. So that's a blacklist. Now, a whitelist works in reverse. So a blacklist lets all the sites go through except for the ones that you specify. A whitelist blocks everything except for the sites that you specify. So you would make up a whitelist. So let's just say you enable a whitelist and you put down that you only want someone to be able to go to one site. Let's just say your school's website. You're doing homework or whatever. So if I go to Facebook or eBay or any site, I can't get to it unless the only site that I can get to are the ones that were specified on the whitelist. And I would say because the way that web works, whitelists, I think, are harder than blacklists because I think sometimes sites have, they draw some of their information from other domains, and you might have disruption of the function of the site because it needs to pull data from other pages that you may have not specified. So if I was going to do it, I would probably start with blacklists. They're a little bit easier because you could specify that only the sites that you don't want someone to reach. But if you're willing to tinker around a little bit, but parental controls, I mean, blacklists, whitelists are, they might have some easier ways of accomplishing this where you can do on a content level, you can block certain types of content, and then no matter where they come from. So for instance, if certain kind of content is, I don't know how to specify it, but it has some criteria that points to what is, adult content versus music versus movies. And then you can kind of pick what you don't want your users to be able to get to. And those are a little bit easier because you have a company that's managing how that works. And so good luck with that. I appreciate it. And yeah. And let's see, this one's about dark web. Joe, how do I get to the dark web and make purchases? I don't know if this is a real question or not. We did a whole segment on the dark web, and dark web is probably not a place that I would mess with. It's not a commerce site. It's sort of like a web that sits underneath the regular internet, and through a browser. It's the one that I've used is called Onion. and you can actually find directories of web pages that are not published and go directly to those sites. I don't, if you're a novice, you don't want to mess with the dark web. It's interesting to look at what's available. You can buy things that, are illegal, and you can get to information that's totally illegal, but I wouldn't mess with that if I wouldn't mess with that. We'll leave it at that. 330-729-9977. Let's go to Ken. Ken, you're on the Youngstown Computer Show. How can I help you?
Hi. Hey, I wondered, I'm a real old guy, and there used to be an investor called, his name was Peter Lynch, and his idea was, his theory years ago was buy what you know. And so since I'm so old, I buy the things like General Mills because I use Cheerios, and Kimberly-Clark because they make toilet paper, and Pepsi and Coke, and Smuckers, and things that I use, Procter and Gamble soap and things. And I don't know anything about these new companies and everything. From your angle, since you're in the technology, I know you're probably going to mention NVIDIA and all these high flyers, but is there anything that you really, you say, boy, that sounds like a good idea, or that company's got a lot on the ball? Are you watching anything technology-wise that might be new and upcoming?
That is a good question. And, I think we're going through some consolidation. So all the big, like the Apples and, Tesla, Google, like those ones, I feel like they're going to hit I feel like those ones are going to consolidate a little bit. You mentioned NVIDIA, absolutely, the producers of the hardware, the scarcity of the materials, that's all going to play into it. But the battery technologies are probably what's headed next. They're playing a lot with the solid state materials to make battery densities a little bit better, and here in the States. So I'd kind of keep an eye on some of those materials companies.
Okay. Anything in particular that look like they have an edge on some technology that's just up and coming?
Not yet, but I'm watching. Like I'm waiting to see who pops up, and it might be connected to Tesla. It might be a brand new company. Some might spin off, but I'd keep an eye on that sector for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. And years ago, like you would just very easily pick the FANG stocks, and Facebook, Amazon, Apple, NVIDIA, Google. Anyway, those were the heavy hitters, and they looked like they had an infinite run. But I'm just kind of like peeking back a little bit. I'm watching, like when companies start doing layoffs and they're cutting these innovation curves, and they're not producing as many products. I think there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup. I don't know. I would talk to an investment guy over me any day, but battery tech is probably where I'm at. Let's see. Text message says, Joe, EVs are great for around town, but over the road, no. Maybe someday, but not now. And I agree with you. I'm not anti-EV, but I don't want to have it forced on me by the moron bureaucrats in the government either. If that would be the best choice and convenient for me, I would consider them. But personally, I think hydrogen would be a better way to go, or possibly hybrid. Just my 2 cents. And I agree. I loved. I like when Americans, like where our innovators, are trying different things, lots of parallel things, all trying to make the best amount of energy. Don't pick a favorite. Everybody's free to innovate, and let the better format or form factor win in the end. I mean, DVDs and whatever, those laser discs. I mean, it was really good because we were playing with different ways, and we kind of just waited until they got their stuff sorted out, and one ended up winning in the end. But it wasn't, nobody was forcing the development. It developed because on its merits and what the consumers favored. And so when it's forced, I think you get a lot of people that are disagreeing and going against it, like Larry was saying, because it's not given as a choice. So thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. All right. If you have any computer needs, make sure you bring it to Youngstown Computer. We hope if your residential and commercial needs, you'll write our phone number down, 330-259-7278. Go to our website, youngstowncomputer.com. If you have any problems right now you want us to help troubleshoot you out of, or if you're in the market, you're ready to make a new purchase, ready to upgrade to some new equipment, set up some new Wi-Fi, all that stuff is what we handle. Also on the commercial side, we do network, servers, NAS, complete engineering of networking environments. So make sure that you keep us in mind when you have those needs. And we'd really appreciate you bringing the business. You guys have been great over the years. You've always been very loyal and supportive, and you've done a great job. And we are being loyal right back at you. So 330-259-7278 is Youngstown Computer's phone number. You can leave a message on the line, and on Monday morning, either Devin will give you a call from the residential side, or Nick will give you a call from the commercial side, and we'll handle your network and take all of your computer needs, fix all of your stuff, and really fill that role of your IT department. So everybody, we're going to take off now. We got some men's basketball coming up next. Appreciate you guys listening out there, and we'll see you next time. This has been the Youngstown Computer Show on 570 WKBN.